Hey, what's up, people? My name is Eric, and you're listening to me, I should say, listening to the craziness that lives inside my head. I am now working on my fourth year of doing this podcast. So sit back and just try to comprehend the craziness that I talk about. Welcome to the show. The name of this podcast is I'm Retiring Part 1. I think it got 4 parts. I'm not yet sure. I didn't do all the podcasts yet, but this is Part 1. And I'm retiring. I gave in my 3 weeks notice 3 weeks ago. So I'm officially retired. Yes, I'm 71 years old and officially retired. And I was thinking about, and I mentioned this to a couple of friends of mine, about talking about the jobs I had in my life, because all those jobs that took out the taxes for my Social Security, right? So all the Social Security stuff that I've been paying for 50 some years. And I hate when Congress talk about an entitlement. It's not an entitlement. I work hard for my Social Security. And I want to talk about in part 1 the jobs I had when I was in high school and junior high school. Because my retirement is a well earned retirement. So let's start off. I was in junior high school. I was 13 years old, and I told my mother I wanted a mohair suit. That was the how you say, the thing of the 60s. For some reason, everybody wants a mohair suit. And I want a mohair suit. And that's what my mother said. I was 13 years old. She said, if you want a mohair suit, you got to go out there and get a mohair job. So I've been working since I was 13. And it seems to me that it's built into my, how you say, built to my character, or built into me, that if I want anything, I had to work for it. I don't want to get into this details. I had a lot of people my age complain about the young people of today, but all I know is when my mother said that to me, the day she said that to me, and then I did get a job. And the day I had my first job when I was 13 years old, I was in junior high school. I was a paper boy. And the way I got that job, I heard through the grapevine that the Herald Tribune, it was called the New York Herald Tribune. It was 1965. And one of their paper boys was leaving early for summer. And they don't come back until the fall. And there was a spot open. So I went and applied to become a paper boy as a summer job. And it was pretty rough because the guy who did the paper route had a bike. I didn't have a bike. I had to walk. I had to put the papers on my back, and plus I lived in East New York, Brooklyn, and the paper route was in Canarsie. So you can understand getting on the bus. Well, I didn't have to get on the bus to get the paper. Get on the bus to get to Canarsie, and then go to the base who had the papers, and walk half the route. I had to do it with the papers on my back. I had to go back and get more papers to reload and do the other half. So I didn't have a bike. The kid who had a bike, he put all the papers on his bike and just took off and did the route. And I'm only bringing this up because my mother said to me, if you want something, you go out there and you work and you get it. And I wanted a mohair suit, so I went and got a paperboy job. And when the paperboy came back from summer camp, and now we're back in school. That's what I did all summer. Now we're back in school. It's fall, and I was doing it. Actually, I don't know if I did it in the day. I know I did it on weekends. I know I did Saturdays and Sundays. My only experience, being that this is partly gay show. My own experience at 13 years old, I went to this. Mind you, I've been going to this guy's house all summer with the news with his newspaper, and I usually just ring the bell, leave the paper, and go. Well, this time the guy had a note on the door because he has to pay because they pay me because if I didn't get the money, I had to pay the base. What money? They're supposed to pay me the money. Use at the end of the week. So it was a Saturday. He had to pay. He put a note on the door to ring, to ring the bell and I guess to wait for him. So this is one of my I think I'm just saying my first gay experience, but for me it was gay. I did that. I rang his bell. He opened the door, stark naked. Now he knew I was coming. He knew I was coming because he left a note there. So stark naked. Interesting. And actually, if you want to know the truth, that's the first time I saw a grown man penis. If you say, I never saw one before. That was the first time. Shocked the hell out of me. Oh my god. Wasn't bad, by the way. Anyway, so that was my first job. My second job, still in junior high school. I was a delivery boy for a pharmacy on 23rd Street. I did that after school. My grandmother, oh no, it was my aunt Emma. She used to work for this family. She was a maid, worked for this family. She heard that I needed looking for an after school job so I can buy my mohair suit. So she had asked her boss, who had a pharmacy on 23rd Street. He was a pharmacist. He had a drugstore. And I went there and I was a delivery boy. And as a delivery boy, I deliver drugs, which I did, well, pharmaceuticals, same thing, right? Drugs to the neighborhood, people in the neighborhood, okay? So my experience with there, that was very interesting. The pharmacist, well, let's be honest. The pharmacist, he was married. I think his wife did the cash register, but what she didn't know, she might have known, but she didn't want to acknowledge she knew that him and I was fooling around in the back while he's mixing the drugs. He had me fool around play with his penis, and I did that because if I did that, he gave me extra money. So what the hell? When you're in your teens, I'm trying to buy a mohair suit. I mean, he wanted to give me extra money just to play with it. Hey, what the hell? Which I did. That didn't last long. I think I got scared and I got tired. What I did, I told a friend of mine in school about it. I forgot his name. I told him because I told him I didn't want to do it anymore. It was kind of let's be honest. I was in when you're at that age, when you're a teenager, you don't know if you're this way or that way. And I just really got tired of playing with his penis every time. It was after school. Every time after school. I really regretted it. I didn't want to play with his penis. I mean, even though I got extra money. So I told a friend of mine that I went to school with, and to make a long story short, he got the job. And I did question him about it after two or 3 months. He was working there, and I did question him about it, but he said, "No, nothing's happened." I didn't say about anything about playing with his penis. I just told him when he went for the job that the guy was really out there. I didn't say what he was. I just said, well, he's a little off. But he claimed nothing like that happened, but I suspect he was doing it. If he's gonna pay me money to play with his penis, I'm quite sure he paid my friend money to play with the penis. Anyway. Then I had a summer job. Now we get into high school. I think it was my first year of high school. And this is my grandmother was a maid, and her boss had a newspaper, one of those back in the 60s. I think they might still have it. They had a lot of neighborhood newspaper. It was a neighborhood newspaper called Palmetto News. It was in Queens. And I worked there for the summer. It was very boring. All I had to do was when the trucks come in with the newspaper, whatever newspaper that they didn't get to sell or leave, I was supposed to log it in as unread, and then I have to log in that, and I have to log in all the papers for the week or for the day that didn't get read or came back, for recycling. And that was it. Just keeping records, recycling papers and, you know. That was for the summer. It was boring. It was boring. But I still didn't get enough money for my mohair suit. So anyway, now we're going into, I'm older now. I think I'm 17 years old. And my next summer was a summer job. I didn't work after school, but this was another summer job the following year. It was the Ridgewood Savings Bank in Ridgewood, Queens. I worked there. It was okay. I think it was like a stock boy. I was a stock boy, and I did some printing from bank printing. They had a printing press in the base. I worked in the basement, and I printed some stuff, and basically was a stock boy. And if you really want to know what's the lowdown with that, well, when you're 16 or 17 years old, you're quite horny. I mean, I used to take a break, and every time I took a break, I'll go in the bathroom in the store and masturbate. Anyway, I digress. So now, my other job, I'm still in school. I'm still in school. I think it's I got here in 1968. I worked for the IRS. Now, what was interesting about that was a summer job. I worked for the IRS, a summer job. And what they did in the summertime was very interesting. This is the way it was done then. I don't know how they do it now. But back then, the revenue officer, I work with a revenue officer, right? When he does his, whatever he does that day, the next day, it's the next day, and I file away whatever cases he was working on. I file away his cases, and whatever he was working on. I just worked the file. All I remember was one floor, like one of those long loft floors they used to have down on the 34th Street in Manhattan, and all it was files. There was drawers all over the place, just files. And I remember he had to do some, I think his job was auditing, how you get audited by the IRS. And what he would tell me to do, go into the file system and randomly pick out 10 files. I pick the 10 files up, I give it to him, he does whatever he does with it, and then that was it. That was my job. That was my summer job for the IRS. Moving on is the next year, 1969. In the beginning of 1969, I did get a job after school. I got a messenger job, which was interesting. Usually those, I don't know if you've seen old movies or heard about stuff from the 60s. They used to have messengers that used to be on bicycles in Manhattan. They rode on their bicycles, and they used to go from office to office. I think it was inter-office, almost like inter-office messages. If one company's on the west side and they want to send something to a company on the east side, they get a messenger service, they call a messenger service, the messenger come over, get the package, and go try to get on the bike. I didn't have a bike, by the way, and get on. What I do remember, getting on the train. I did most of mine because I didn't have a bike. So they paid the car fare for me to get on the bus or the train to do the messenger, the messaging. That was all right. The thing about that, that year that I did that, in the beginning of that year, there was a World Series. And I remember the Mets won the World Series. It was 1969. The Mets won the World Series. I'm trying to deliver these packages, and the whole city was going crazy. The whole city, I remember. It was one big party in Manhattan because the Mets won the World Series. That was 1969. And that was the fall of '69. In the fall of '69, at the same time, I did take a test for the post office. My dad worked in the post office. My aunt worked in the post office. I have a lot of friends worked in the post office. And the post office allow you to work as you're still going to school. Because you had to be 17 years old to work in the post office. So I was 17. I was going on 18. So I didn't know till after I worked at the messenger, I got a letter saying I passed the test. So I started working for the United States Post Office. After school, I worked weekends. And then I graduated. By the time I graduated in June when I was 18. Since you had to work there for a year, September or October made a year of 1970 that I worked there, and I became a regular clerk. So I was a substitute clerk for a year. Then I became a regular clerk for a year. And then I was out of school, and now I was starting my adult life working. I worked my whole teenage life. In 1970, I started working my adult life working. And that would be, I'm retiring part 2, part 3, and part 4. I hope you enjoy this, I don't know what you call it. But anyway, my name is Eric, and thank you for listening to the craziness that lives inside my head.
The journey that began in 2018 continues into the 2040s. Dr. Fernandez has found a way to infuse the God particle into the DNA and genes of a hybrid human. All that is left is extracting these DNA cells from the hybrid human.